It's the main event challenge. Anik.
The time is most definitely now.
Florian.
I finish fights! I'm going to do everything possible to win.
The main event challenge. The John Anik and Kenny Florian Podcast.
Well, I'm going to be candid with you. In a perfect world, we'd go 60 minutes on the UFC 249 recap, but we got to show these other athletes some respect, and the UFC has 2 more live events in Jacksonville. So to that end, we will get to the picks. Second straight winning week for the Ducky and Parker, who now joins us live. 5-4 the final margin, so Team Anik's lead is now 38-35. As we begin with our picks for UFC Fight Night, Smith versus Teixeira, the show Wednesday live on ESPN+. And we begin in the lightweight division. Drew Dober's won a couple in a row by first-round knockout. As such, slightly favored here, minus 125 as he takes on the ranked Alexander Hernandez, who comes back at minus 105, the underdog. Ian Parker, get us started off right, kid. You going Dober or Hernandez?
I'm going Dober here. I like his takedown defense. I like his stand-up lately, and I think his power is what's going to really bring this through. I think Hernandez kind of has been humbled lately, and this is a very tough matchup to come back to. I'm going to roll with Drew Dober here. I like him.
Kenflo, Alexander Hernandez was to face Islam Makhachev April 18th, but of course that fight did not happen. Your thoughts on how Hernandez matches up with the streaking Drew Dober here?
I think Drew Dober does have a little momentum. I think he's a similar fighter to Alexander Hernandez, but I think Hernandez, if he, can bring all of his skills forth in this fight, I think he wins this fight. I think Hernandez is, I don't think he's going to be taken down. I think this will most likely be a stand-up battle for the most part. I think Hernandez is going to be a little bit sharper. I think he hits a little bit harder. And I wouldn't be surprised if Hernandez tries to take Dober down, but I like Hernandez in this one.
All right, moving on now to the heavyweight division. This is the co-main event. Former light heavyweight title challenger Ovince St. Preux, after 20 fights at light heavyweight in the UFC, is moving on up. He is favored here, minus 150 against the king of Kenosha, Ben Rothwell, who comes back at plus 120. We will have Kenflo lead it off here. What do you think about St. Preux moving on up? I mean, he's huge, Kenny. 80-inch reach, doesn't have to cut the weight. How do you think he matches up with Big Ben?
He's a big dude. Certainly not as big as Ben Rothwell, though. Ovince St. Preux, he's got some power. I don't think he's the kind of guy, though, to carry that power up to heavyweight and be really that effective. I also don't see his submissions being as much of a factor here against Rothwell, because I don't see him getting Rothwell down to the mat. I think he's going to be surprised when he sees a proper heavyweight out there who can hit and who can stop the takedown. I think where Rothwell can have some success here is by outpointing him and utilizing his speed advantage out there. If he's able to stay disciplined, get in and get out, I think OSP can win this fight. However, I think Rothwell's going to win this one.
Ian, what do you think? Rothwell St. Preux, kid.
I kind of like Rothwell here, too. The only thing Rothwell can't do, though, is fight the first 2 rounds the way he did against Stefan Struve, which is way too hesitant, waiting for to come to him, because OSP doesn't push that pace like that, and I do think OSP is going to try and take Rothwell down, but I think Kenny broke it down perfectly. I think Big Ben is going to be too big, not to be cliche there. I think he's too big, and I think the power, to Kenny's point, OSP's not sitting there knocking out guys at 205 either, and this is a very weird matchup for me in regards to where to go at 205. This is a tough task to jump in that division. So I'm going to go with the underdog here also. I like Rothwell.
All right, your main event Wednesday night in the light heavyweight division, Anthony Smith, the minus 185 favorite here against Glover Teixeira, who comes back at plus 150. Men will need the round and the method of victory here. So you got Anthony Smith coming off the biggest win of his career against Alexander Gustafsson, then lived a nightmare several weeks ago when he fought off a home intruder who was a credentialed wrestler. Crazy to hear Anthony talk to us about that whole experience. We'll try to sort of pass along that on the broadcast on Wednesday night. But Kenflo Smith favored here over Glover Teixeira, who's quietly won 3 in a row. He's a man. He's 40. What do you think about Teixeira as the dog against Anthony Smith?
I think Glover is a guy who obviously has been there and done that, has a ton of experience, does have some good power when he lands. Obviously a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But I don't think, at this point he matches up so great against Anthony Smith. I think Anthony Smith is going to be, the taller man out there. He's going to utilize those long-range weapons. I think the awkwardness of Anthony Smith is going to throw off Glover Teixeira. So I don't think Teixeira is going to be able to get his ground game going in this one. I like Anthony Smith. I think there's probably going to be a TKO in and around round 2.
All right, Anthony Smith, the pick to click for Kenflo. Ian, Anthony Smith just derived so much confidence from that win over Alexander Gustafsson. He said to us last Friday, he's like, Gus just doesn't lose to bad people. So huge source of confidence for Smith. How do you think he matches up with Glover?
Yeah, I like his reach here. I like the length in this situation as well. I think he's also a guy that knows how to use it. I think his experience against John Jones for 5 rounds will play a factor here as well. For Glover at this point in his career, his last few fights, we saw him in a lot of danger against both Roberson and also against Ion Cutelaba. And I just don't know how much longer that chin could really last. This is not Anthony Smith's not a fighter that if you get rocked, you're going to be able to just take him down and utilize your jiu-jitsu. Ion Cutelaba, he's not known for a guy to be off his back. Same thing with Roberson here. So I do like Anthony Smith as well. You would think TKO in the situation. I have a weird feeling that he's going to rock Glover, but I think he's going to finish this by a rear naked choke, and I'll say round 2 as well. I do think Glover's cardio is going to be a little bit of an issue for him here. Anthony does a nice pace for someone at 205, so I like Lionheart here, and I'm glad him and his family are safe, obviously, after that disaster of the situation. So craziness, I like Anthony.
He'll be the first to tell you, Ian, that he's a jiu-jitsu guy and he's not a striker. All right, Saturday, May 16th. UFC Fight Night, Overeem versus Harris. We got a feature bout here in the featherweight division where Edson Barboza is now competing. He's a -135 favorite here against Dan Ige, who comes back at +105. So, Ian, 23rd UFC start for Barboza. On the other side, Ige just on a tear. 5 straight wins. The last one of a high quality against Mirsad Bektic. What do you think about Barboza and Ige here at 145 pounds?
I thought Ige was very impressive, and he was very smart against Bektic in the way he fought, and his cardio obviously is his strong point. I just think he's taking on a very, very tall task here. I mean, I know he wants to step up in competition, but we're talking about a guy who was one of the best at, 55 for a long time with those devastating leg kicks. I think Barboza has fought better wrestlers. I think he's fought guys with just as good cardio, and he's fought way better competition. That's not a knock on Ige. It's just where they are in their careers at this point. So I think Barboza's leg kicks are going to slow Ige down, and I'm going to go with Barboza here in his debut.
Kenflo, Barboza, Ige, your thoughts?
This is a tough one for me. I think that if this fight was at 155 pounds and I knew that Barboza could have all of his energy, I would say, hey, Barboza all day. I think he's the more technical striker in some ways. I think he's going to carry his speed down to 145 for the most part. Is he going to carry his power? Is he going to have the same kind of chin and not necessarily known for his chin at 155 pounds? I'm not so sure. I mean, can you guys point out the fat on his body at 155 pounds for me?
Bro. I know.
I don't know, man. So I think, yeah, exactly. Right around the elbow, I think he had some fat. But, yeah, I don't think there's going to be much there. I think it's going to take its toll on him. And I think if this fight goes past – the first round, that Ige is only going to get, be more of a nightmare for him. Ige shows no fear as far as not going forwards, and he's not afraid to get on the inside and trade. I think Ige is going to press him from the opening bell, and I think Ige wins this one.
Ige's an animal. All right, co-main event at strawweight, Claudia Gadelha -190, Angela Hill +155. So how about Angela Hill, the workhorse? Matchmaker's go-to fighter. So this will be her 7th fight, Flo, in the last 15 months. 4 fights in 2019. She already has 2 more in 2020 before COVID-19 intervened. She is, though, the +155 underdog here, Flo, going for a 4th straight win. What do you think about Angie Overkill versus Claudia Gadelha?
Yeah, it's been really cool to see kind of Angela embrace this kind of level of activity and have this competitive spirit. I do think, however, that she's in a tough fight here against Claudia Gadelha. Gadelha, so long as she has that fighting spirit with her, I think she should win this fight. I think she's better everywhere. I think she's the better striker. She's more technical. I think she definitely has the better ground game, and that's where she needs to take this fight. She needs to look for some singles and doubles, put Angela on her back where she can win this fight.
Ian, Claudia Gadelha has alternated wins and losses for a while. The last winning streak with 2017 for her. She's trying to make it 2 straight here. What do you think about the co-main?
I think this is a good fight for her to bounce back. I give Angela all the credit in the world for trying to be the Cowboy Cerrone of the
Yeah.
the women's division, stuff like that. And it shows. And her growth has been there. She's evolved. But I just think the level of competition she's fought is not even close to what Claudia's been fighting since the division even opened. I think Claudia, if she takes this fight to the ground, it'll be a nightmare for Angela. And I think on the feet, to Kenny's point, I think she's faster. I think she throws better combos. Again, credit to Angela Hill. This is a huge step up. If she wins, amazing. I just don't see it happening. I'm rolling with Kenny here. I like Claudia as well.
All right, and Ian, we will lead with you on the main event at heavyweight. Walt Harris -170, Alistair Overeem +140. We'll need the round and the method of victory. Walt Harris's story is well documented. His stepdaughter, Anaya Blanchard, brutally murdered last fall. I don't know where Walt Harris is emotionally. You know, I consider him a friend, and his wife, Angela, they're truly special people. I just think it's got to be so hard to get back to mixed martial arts training and competing, Ian. All of that being said, Walt Harris is a fucking beast, and he's about a 2-1 favorite here against the Reem, who may not be in his fighting prime, but is still a real problem. What do you think about the main event next Saturday night?
Based on the odds, I think I have to go with the underdog here. You know, I try to put the emotions to the side. I try to put, obviously, what happened to him to the side. Although, to your point, how do you go back to doing this? You know, you want to use that as motivation. I understand. You could try. You know, my heart goes out to them. It's a fucking nightmare, especially as a parent, you know, but let's look back at the last two fights. Who won it? Anik was his last fight that he won, Walt Harris, right? And Overeem went 5 rounds with Jairzinho, and he was winning up until that last second knockout. You know, I think this fight's standing. I think Overeem is still the better striker. I think Walt Harris is the better athlete. Overeem has shown, though, that IQ that he can take the fight to the ground. And I think that he could put Walt on his back and create a little bit of an issue. I didn't see Overeem's cardio as a problem in that fight against Jairzinho Rosenstrike at all.
Right.
And I think this is a big step up for Walt, especially with everything considered. And if you want to talk about betting, this is kind of hard to think that Walt Harris is getting that much respect out of Vegas, you know, kind of for what? Spivak, Onik. I mean, I know Alexei Onik just beat Fabrizio Werdum, and I'm eating that one real hard right there. But that was a real shit sandwich, let me tell you. But I got to go with the odds here. I like Overeem as the underdog. Oh, and by what round? I don't know if he finishes him. I'll say decision at the moment. That will probably change, but just to get you an answer, I like Overeem.
Right. Not trying to put you on the spot with the round and method of victory. I mean, we do this every week. I love you.
No. I know this one's just very hard to pick around. Sorry, I got you.
So Kenflo, this fight was to be the main event December 7th in Washington D.C. So needless to say, these guys have been on each other's respective radar for some time. How do you see the heavyweight main event going down on the 16th?
Oh man, this is very difficult for a bunch of different reasons. Yeah, listen, Overeem has been fighting a very long time, you know, and with that obviously comes a lot of damage over the course of a professional kickboxing and mixed martial arts career. You know, that last shot that he took against Rosenstrike was absolutely brutal. You know, I think he was performing very well up until that point, though, like Ian said. I think for Walt Harris, this is a big step in competition for him. I think that he might be the faster guy out there. I think he might have some physical advantages out there, but you know, I think if Overeem takes it to the mat, I think he might be in trouble. I think that Overeem also has an ability to kind of defensively with his footwork kind of diffuse the energy of Walt Harris and kind of not allow him to land a lot of strikes out there. I really hope that Walt Harris goes out there and wins this fight, man. It would be great if he can pull it off. I think, you know, the longer this fight goes, the more difficult it's going to be for him in a lot of ways. I can't even imagine the kind of emotional trauma that he's bringing into that octagon and that baggage. It's just heartbreaking to think about. I hope he wins.
All right, looks like we just lost Kenflo. We will get his Alistair Overeem official prediction in terms of the round or the finish. But Ian Parker, MMA on social media, buddy, you're the lifeblood of the show. You know I love you. We'll definitely have you on for longer next week when I'm back home, and we'll get your thoughts on UFC 249 and in particular how Khabib and Gaethje match up. But appreciate your handicapping and your insight as always, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it, bro. Stay safe. Have fun out there.
Thank you, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
You got it.